Alright, hey guys, and welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be talking about one of my recent pickups, Godzilla on the PS4, and I'm going to help you figure out whether or not this game is for you, and kind of talk about my reasoning behind buying this game knowing full well that it had a Metacritic review aggregation score of like a 38 or a 39 when I went to go buy it. It's getting critically panned. I mean, it has almost no good reviews online. The only good reviews are coming in from some really dedicated fans that post, their 10 out of 10 review, which trust me, this game is not a 10 out of 10. The only reason they're rating it a 10 out of 10, unless they're truly in love with this game, but it's really not deserving, it's just to boost the score, the average, to help their game, because they don't view it as a 1 out of 10 or a 0 out of 10. And in my opinion, no game is worthy of a 0 out of 10. I mean, that's just like, that should be a game that's almost unplayable and broken. But some people leave 0 out of 10 reviews, so they leave a 10 out of 10 to counter it. So, I went to go pick this game up at GameStop. One of the rare occurrences that I buy a game at GameStop anymore, by the way. The only time I go to GameStop is when it's like an impulse buy, when I want the game that day, I didn't pre-order, and I don't want to wait an extra day. And even the guy working in GameStop was trying to talk me out of it. He's like, are you sure you want to buy this? You've seen the reviews, and I'm like, oh, I know full well. I'm ready to slap down my $65 and play me some Godzilla on the PS4, and I'm going to explain whether or not I regret it or, I'm happy I did that. But first of all, I have 3 questions for you to kind of like give you a broad general scope of whether or not this game may or may not be for you. Do you consider yourself a Godzilla fan of the old Godzilla movies? Not just the 2014 movie and maybe the 1998 movie, though I don't know if there's really many fans of that. But are you a fan of old Godzilla movies? Did you grow up watching the old Godzilla movies? Yes or no? Do you look for a satisfying single-player campaign, with a lot of different variants and level designs and things to do? Is single-player important to you, or do you mostly play for online? Yes or no? And do you like repetition and grinding to level up your characters and unlock new abilities? Yes or no for that? If you answered no to all 3 of those things, avoid this game at all costs. I mean, especially if you're not a Godzilla fan, don't even consider it. But trust me, I'm saving you money here. If you are not an old-school Godzilla fan, do not buy this game. But if you are, there's a chance that you may like it, or you may not. So, this is a game that is like a Godzilla simulator. It's very slow, it's very clunky. A lot of people complain about the controls, where you use the left and L1 and R1 buttons to actually turn the monsters. You don't even use the right joystick to turn them. The right joystick is used for the camera, and the shoulder buttons are used for turning the monsters, which to me is just fine. It actually controls really well to me. I don't see what the big complaint is with the shoulder button controls. Sure, it might feel like you're controlling like a tank of some sorts, but at the speed that the monsters move, I think it's totally fair. And the reason they do this, in my opinion, is using the right joystick, you can spin the camera around it. It really looks cinematic, where instead of the right... it really lets you stage these battles and make it look like it's from a film, because you're able to attack without having to worry about your monster misaligning by using the right joystick, because it's all for camera controls. I think the controls work fairly well. The biggest fault with this game is, if you're not buying this for online, the single player is god-awful. It is so bad. So bad to the point that you're forced to play it, and it really brings down the experience. So the single player consists of this branching path. You start on this first level every single time as Godzilla, if you're playing as Godzilla. And you just destroy these generators. So you have to build up a destruction meter and a fury meter by destroying buildings. And eventually, the end goal of almost every single level is to destroy these generators, and then the level ends. Sometimes you'll fight a monster, sometimes you won't. Now, the one redeeming thing about the single-player aspect is it can be fun to destroy the cities and everything. Like, the explosions at times are very impressive, and it's just fun to go around and build up your fury meter. And in a way, it's a fun little mini-game. It's not just mindless destruction of buildings. There's sort of like there's a formula to it where you want to leave certain buildings up so that you can transverse the level and keep your meter going, because if you're not destroying anything, your fury meter is dropping, and the fury meter actually determines how much experience you get, and that experience is used to level up your monsters. There's a method behind the destruction. It's not just there to look cool and kind of just have Godzilla flail around and destroy these buildings. Long story short, the single player is boring. Destroying these reactors, after the first couple of times and destroying these cityscapes, it gets to be very repetitive, and I have to take frequent breaks and go online. So the online is where this game shines. It has 2-player online and 3-player online. Everybody picks their own monster, of which, here's another problem. Everything that you want to use online has to be unlocked through the single player. So that means every monster that you want to unlock, you have to encounter them in the single player. And some of it is random. Some of the monsters always appear on a certain level, so you know where to find them. But some of them have special conditions to unlock. But long story short, you have to play the single player to unlock monsters, and then when you want to level up those monsters and learn new moves, you also have to play single player to get the experience and the items that you need from defeating monsters to unlock these new moves and abilities and power them up. Now, that might not seem too bad, but then you come to realize that online, people have a very unfair advantage when they've leveled up a monster. If you're a Godzilla that has barely played anything, and you go up against a Godzilla that's like fully leveled, you almost have no chance of winning, because he's going to have extra invulnerability specials, which to block in this game, it's actually a special attack, and that creates an incredible unfair advantage. To the point where when people use some of the more powerful monsters like Biollante, or say maybe a Mechagodzilla, or I don't know, I'm just throwing out names there, but Biollante is one of the most unfair monsters in this game. It's ridiculous how much I hate that thing. It's an interesting dynamic in the 3-player because, yeah, you can gang up on somebody even if they're more powered up, like the 2 underpowered monsters can gang up against the more overpowered. But in one-on-one situations, it basically comes down to who gets the first attack off first, or whose attacks have priority over someone else's. And in some situations, you know, you'll just never be able to defeat somebody because your monster is just so much more inferior to the other. But I don't want to slam on the online too much because it genuinely is fun. I've spent about 10 hours, a majority of that in the online multiplayer. Even though I lose a lot of the battles, it's still insane amounts of fun, especially in the 3-player battles, because there's a really interesting dynamic where there's no voice chat, but when you're in a match lobby, it tells you how many wins somebody has. So say you're up against a Godzilla or a Rodan, you know, a monster that has, like, a player that has over 100 wins, and you have 10 and the other guy has 5. In your mind, you're thinking to yourself, okay, it would make sense if we team up against this guy because we know he's played this game more than us. And most of the time in an online match when that happens, that's exactly what goes on. The other guy that has low wins, such as myself, we will team up against that guy with the higher wins. We'll team attack him with lightning breath and whatever have you, kill him, and then we go at it. Other situations where it's not so one-sided, you know, you might have a strategy where you play as, like, Mothra, Larva, and you sit around and you wait for the other 2 to duke it out, and, you know, just, I don't know, and then you go in for the winning kill at the end. 3-player online matches are much better than 4, and the reason is if you had 4 players, the good aspect would be that you could have 2-on-2 matches, which would be really fun. But if it was 4-player free-for-all, all it would come down to is 2 players versing one another over here, 2 players versing over here. The victor of each battle will come together at the end. But 3-player forces this dynamic where you have to really pick and choose who you attack when you team up. If you're getting destroyed and the other guy's getting destroyed, it would make sense for you to attack the guy with the most health. So it's actually a lot of fun. The problem is with this game, it's very limited in scope. There's you know, there's a heavy attack, there's a light combo attack that you can do, there's a special attack. There's also a ranged attack that you can do, and there's a couple of variances with a throw. I mean, there's nothing spectacular. It's not like a wrestling game or a fighting game where you're putting in these special commands and pulling off these spectacular attacks. It's limited, but what it sets out to do, create a game that is supposed to feel like a Godzilla movie. Even the sound, down to the sound and the design of the monsters, it's really pinpoint accurate. They actually look like people in rubber suits. It's not like a lot of the other Godzilla games where they're a little bit more stylized, they're really fast. It feels more like an arcade game. This feels more like a Godzilla simulator, which is a good or a bad thing depending on who you talk to. But after playing online for quite a bit, you realize that once people get leveled up and they have more dedication, the online may wear a bit thin. Another thing about this game is it looks like a PS3 game. Some people even say it looks like a late PS2 game, but definitely it doesn't go that far. It doesn't look that bad. But it looks like a PS3 game. There's nothing in this game, except for maybe some of the particle effects and the explosions and the monster models, that would warrant being on the PS4. So, graphic-wise, it's not that great at all. Another problem is the slowdown. The game has a lot of slowdown. The frame rate can dip really bad online. Single player, it's not quite that bad. But online, some matches become borderline unplayable because of frame rate issues, which is a shame. But sometimes it runs just fine. And the last thing that I wanted to touch upon that really shows, you know, the dedication to the fans in this game, they even have I'm not sure if any other Godzilla games have ever done this before, but there's a diorama mode where you can actually, like, buy Godzilla figures of all the different monsters and align them in these stage sets. I didn't play around with it much, so I only have, like, one Godzilla in one stage set to play with, but there's a lot of different things to play around with here, and there's also a monster encyclopedia which goes through basically almost I think, every monster that's ever been in a Godzilla film, which is cool for fans. But in the end, Godzilla on the PS4 is not worth full price of admission unless you are a super hardcore Godzilla fan that likes to play online. If you're a fan of Godzilla but you don't really like to play online, or maybe you do but you're not sure, wait till this game drops in price. It'll be $20 in no time, believe me. The only reason that I bought it right now, right this moment, you're probably wondering, like, why did I buy this right now? It's because games like this that have such a niche audience, I wanted to play online because the online looked like a blast. That's the reason I bought this game. If you give a game like this a month or two, there will be nobody playing online. So buying it right now, the only advantage is that you can find multiplayer matches really fast, no problem at all, and you also get in on the game before people get really good at it, and then you have no chance online. And if you play this game online a few months from now, chances are the only people that'll be playing it are the masters with like hundreds of wins. So, in the end, guys, hopefully, I'm not saying go out and buy this game if you're a fan of Godzilla, but hopefully my explanation of it has helped you in your buying decisions and finding out if this is right for you right now, or should you wait for the price to drop. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.